Commander 2019 spoilers are here, and honestly, they look pretty amazing and flavorful. So you know what this is? This is the hype train, and we're gonna ride it, baby! Let's go! Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. Welcome, my friends. Thank you for joining me for this delectable foray into this year's Commander 2019 offerings. We have a number of cards to look at. We're going to take a look at some awesome Commander options, some cards that are associated with those Commanders, a little bit of reprint action, and at the very end, a little bit of teaser of what is yet to come. And as a side note, if you did not know, there will be a Planeswalker reprinted as well in each one of these Commander decks. Now, let's dive into the newness. We're going to start out with Garedd, Conclave Exile. 2 colorless, or generic mana as the kids like to call it. 2 colorless, 1 red, 1 green, 1 white. It is a 2/5 legendary human shaman. When he enters the battlefield, you create a 4/4 green rhino creature token with trample. I'm already on board. I love me some big green meanies, yeah. So, his second ability, whenever he attacks, populate. Now, populate is already a pretty sweet ability, but this one says, the token enters the battlefield tapped and attacking. And populating is just picking a token that you already have one of out. So he comes with his own built-in 4/4 token that you can elect to use, or if you have other tokens, it feels like it can get pretty dirty. A funny little note, somebody who was looking at this card over on Reddit specifically said, hey, if you look at his name, he's green, white, red. You take the G from his name from green, you take the HI from white, and then just red, and you got his name built in his colors. I thought that was kind of fun. But either way, the power level of this guy doesn't seem too shabby. 5 mana is getting you, essentially, if you smash everything together, a 6/9 with the ability to swing and make more creatures. Now, the flavor behind this is actually really, really cool to me. I don't know if you picked up on it right away, but it says Conclave Exile, and your brain goes, well, Conclave could mean a number of different things. It is just kind of a fantasy sounding term in the first place. But if you actually pay attention, you will quickly realize, wait, this is a Selesnyan. He is a Selesnyan originally. And you can see this is most pronounced when you look at the armor that he's wearing on his legs. The parts directly above his knees actually have the little Selesnya trees. He's got the trees on his knees, yo. So that shows, hey, wait a minute, he's got different aspects on him where you can go, oh, this guy's actually from Selesnya. Selesnya's green-white. He's got a red aspect to him, which makes you think of red is like chaos, passion, and rage. What has he done? What has he done to get himself exiled? Look at this. You can see the green energy coruscating around him as he hefts up a big, massive axe, and all the green energy is also flowing around the rhino and lighting up its eyes. Is that him controlling the rhino? Is the rhino his friend and he's just making another copy of it? Is that why he was left? Is that why he was forced to leave the Selesnyans? Is it because he was like forcing his will on creatures? Is it because he's just too violent for the Selesnyans? I don't know. There are a number of options, and actually, now that I think about it, looking at the art, I never really noticed this before, but the green energy is arcing off to the side, and it does look like a second rhino is being created. So in this situation, one at least of the 2 rhinos here is the original, and the other is the copy that he is creating. So this is the moment of him just getting ready to launch his attack. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at each of these commanders, and we're going to look at a card that's keyed to go with the commander. So Garedd has Garedd's Belligerence. And I mean, that kind of speaks to why he might have been booted out of Selesnya, because he is indeed belligerent. 2 red and X, it's a sorcery. It deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures. Whenever a creature dealt damage this way dies this turn, populate. Create a token that's a copy of a creature token you control. So that's pretty insane. The flavor text says harmony is no longer an option. When you talk like that, obviously you can see why this guy was given the boot from Selesnya. It's like, I'm sorry, but we're all about harmony. You need to stop. I really like the artwork where it shows a boar smashing through a brick wall with all this magic arcing around him. It feels like he has abandoned the Conclave in favor of becoming Gruul, and that would explain also why when we looked at the legendary creature, he had the red mixed into his casting cost. But this is crazy. If you use this to do damage properly in terms of little bit here after a combat swing, or they have a bunch of tokens, you're looking at a lot of tokens on your side. So I am a big fan of this. I think it's a fantastic card. The fact that you can just divide it any way you want. Now, it is a burn spell that you can't hit players with, so there is that. The second commander we have to look at here is Sevinne the Chronoclasm. It's 1 white, 1 red, 1 blue, 2 colorless for a 2/2 legendary creature. You prevent all damage that would be dealt to him. All damage that would be dealt to him. He just can't take damage. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard, each turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. And it says, the best moments are worth reliving. I love time mages. The concept of controlling time is incredible to me. Calling himself the Chronoclasm, or whether he calls himself that, his name being the Chronoclasm is amazing. It makes you think of something like a Pyroclasm, but instead with time. And you can see something behind him. You don't know if it's blowing up or if he's reversing time to restore something that was destroyed. He's got a very confident pose. I love all the little details. There's a whole bunch of little knickknacks stuck to his belt. These may actually be relics destroyed throughout time that he has gone through time to save himself, because we'll see that concept tie in when we look at the card that's connected to him. But I really like the way that he stands out with his garments against the blue background with all that time lightning kind of energy circulating around. And pay attention to the jug that is shown in his hand, because that's actually also depicted specifically in Sevinne's Reclamation. 1 white, 2 colorless, it's a sorcery. Return target permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If this spell was cast from a graveyard, you may copy the spell and choose a new target for the copy. And it's got flashback. This one is built for the flashback deck. Obviously, each of these commanders is keyed to one of the 4 abilities. So the previous guy was keyed to populate. This one's keyed to flashback. Most of them, it's really obvious what they're tied to. I think there's one where you might look at it. No, actually, yeah, they're all very straightforward. Never mind. So overall, this seems like a very solid card. The fact that you can return any permanent that costs 3 or less from your graveyard, and if you play it again from your graveyard, you actually get 2 copies, is solid. The artwork depicts Sevinne bringing, I assume, a jar, some sort of like urn or container that was destroyed back into existence. There's a crumbled pillar all around him. And it's just basically, I think that the pillar's being restored as well. And he's just reaching out a hand. He's just so casually reversing time. And that makes him seem incredibly powerful to me. I really dig the commander and his associated card. So the third commander that we're going to take a look at is Kadena Slinking Sorcerer. So that's 1 black, 1 green, 1 blue, 1 colorless for a 3/3 legendary Naga Wizard. The first face-down creature spell you cast each turn costs 3 less to cast. Whenever a face-down creature enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. The only constant in life is the only constant in life is the unknown. So the idea behind Kadena, as far as I'm seeing it, with the whole slinking and morph, is a very like a master of secrets, hiding in the background, not really being out in the open. To me, that's illustrated by the art as well. You have the Naga kind of shrouded in darkness in some kind of either underground sort of scenario or just indoors where there's not a lot of light, kind of murky darkness. That's why everything has that uniform kind of blue-gray coloration compared to the energy that's arcing around Kadena. So I mean, overall, admittedly to me, this one is the least engaging in terms of flavor and whatnot. But overall, it's not like it's a bad card. It'll go perfectly fine with Ixodor, but it doesn't excite me as much as the other commanders, truthfully. Although the card that goes with Kadena Silencer, is pretty interesting. This is a morph creature, and how morph works, if you don't know, you take the creature, you play it face down. It costs 3 mana to cast it that way, and then you can turn it face up for its morph, or in this case, Megamorph cost. So this one costs 3 to put face down, costs a blue and a colorless to flip up, or a blue and a colorless to just play normally, although admittedly, In most cases, you're not going to want to play it normally. You're going to want to play it as a morph and flip it to take advantage of its abilities. But either way, 1 blue, 1 colors for a 2/1. When it's turned face up, counter all abilities your opponents control. And it's got a Megamorph for a blue and a colorless, which means when you flip it face up, it's actually a 3/2 as well, because it gets a +1/+1 counter. So the artwork on this is pretty interesting. You've got the Naga just kind of framed in what looks like kind of dark woods. It gives the whole silencer, the shrouded look of it, it all lends into that like slinking concept, the secretive concept of Kadena overall. So a great way to extend the flavor. And when you turn it up, you counter all abilities your opponents control. That seems like it could be pretty powerful in Commander when people are just going, doing all kinds of stuff, and you're like, flip it up. No, none of that's happening. So who's the 4th commander? Well, the 4th commander is actually someone who shows up in an actual little bit like tangential Magic lore, and that's Anji Falkenrath. And she is, I believe when I look at it, I think it's a woman. I don't know 100%. But either way, this individual, the Falkenrath household basically was corrupted by the Eldrazi. And so a lot of them grew bat wings and other things like that, started to go crazy. And Anji Falkenrath, that's what I'm going to go with. So Anji Falkenrath has actually gathered a bunch of other Falkenrath warriors under her control, and her goal is to actually reclaim her ancestral homelands. The Falkenraths were a powerful vampire lineage that ended up having their home smashed by Avacyn, and actually there was a monastery that replaced it. So amidst the rubble, they just built a monastery over it. I believe it was Heron's Reach Monastery. Anyhow, this monastery's there now, and Anji, she wants to take it back. She wants to reclaim her ancestral land. So that's pretty cool flavor-wise. Now, this is the Madness Commander. 1 black, 1 red, 1 colors for a 1/3 with haste. Tapper, discard a card, and draw a card. Obviously, that goes great with Madness, because Madness is an ability where when you discard the card, you can cast it for its Madness cost. So it's like, discard the card, but you still get to cast it. And that actually ties in with their second ability here, or third, really. Whenever you discard a card, if it has Madness, untap Anji Falkenrath. We all hide a little madness behind our sophistication, do we not? And the artwork, is this supposed to represent her being, like, is this supposed to be her haste combined with her madness, where she exists in 2 states at once? Is that what's going on here? I'm not 100% sure, because it looks like there's a hand like reaching out for blood and then whipping the blood around through the air, and the other hand has this crazy trailing smoke going on. The artwork I don't fully understand, but I find it very compelling and interesting. It's cool that we have this character from Magic history, just this little side character that was mentioned somewhere, and now they've been given their own card. I don't know, it's cool when you have characters you already know a little something about who have understandable, meaningful goals, and reclaiming your homeland is an understandable goal, even if it is evil vampires trying to drive out who are essentially good monks. It is still a cool story. It's all right to have villains that you root for. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, the card that goes with Anji here, Anji's Ravager, this card seems really, really strong. 1 red, 2 colors for a 3/3. It attacks each combat if able. I think they just had to do that because otherwise it would just be, this thing would be out of control. Whenever it attacks, discard your hand, then draw 3 cards. So the fact that it has to attack every turn is what reins in that ability. If you have no cards in your hand, this thing's going to be filling your hand over and over, which is just dumb. And on top of that, it enables madness, right? You're playing a madness deck, so you're going to be pitching your cards. You'll be able to play them for the madness cost. This guy even has madness for a red and a colorless. So you could discard this card to Anji and pay a red and a colorless to cast it. And then each turn it's going to attack. You pitch your hand and draw 3 new cards. If your hand is empty, this is just refilling your hand with 3 cards every turn. It really does feel incredibly strong. And you can see the Ravager there has just completely drained somebody. This looks like a kind of almost a back alley sort of setup where someone, or outside of the town's perimeter, something like that, where someone has, it's from the perspective of somebody who's just stumbled on this Ravager, who's just drained this guy. and he's just holding up, he's drained, and you can tell he's just about to drop the body and just lunge at the person who's viewing them and just go, blamp, you're my next dinner. That's the flavor on the card is fantastic. That would be a terrifying moment. You would stumble on this and then realize that you're just owned. It's all over for you. Now, those are all we have in terms of brand new cards, but I do have another card that is a reprint that's been spoiled, and this is a fantastic inclusion that will make many players happy. That is Seedborn Muse. 2 green, 3 colors for a 2/4. Untap all permanents you control during each other player's untap step. Her voice is the wilderness, savage and pure. Kamahl, Druid Acolyte. Man, Kamal's days was so long ago. The artwork is funky. You've got the Seedborn Muse. She's a spirit. It looks like her dress is made out of fabric, but at the same time, it also looks like it's just made out of green spiritual energy. And she's reaching her arms out, and everywhere she's reaching is just massive, massive amounts of growth. The idea of like a muse that inspires you, but one that inspires nature to grow and revitalizes everything. Seedborn Muse is fantastic, art-wise and flavor-wise and power level-wise. It's a home run, this card, in all honesty. Now, I do have one little teaser extra to show you, and that is this picture here of Gerard Capuchin. We don't have a card for him yet. Is he getting his own card? My guess is yes, and I'm looking forward to it. Honestly, I think that this is probably the best artwork I've ever seen for Gerard, and you can actually see, if you take a look in the back, you can see the faces of individuals like Hannah, Squee, Karn, Tongarth. You've got Miri. You've got all kinds of the members of the Weatherlight just half subtly put out in the in these like crazy wing patterns. Like he's basically got the steering wheel of the skyship Weatherlight, and then those represent the wings of it. It is actually a really nice encapsulation of Magic history right there. Like for people like me, this artwork is a huge home run, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what card it is on. Now, the only thing left to do is to welcome my new patrons and channel members, and there's a fair number of them. We are welcoming today Connor, Leroy, Marco Esquindolis, Nathan Oy, Paul Glenn, Konku, Dan Nolan, and Peter Crafts. Thank you all for supporting my channel. It warms my heart when I see a new person join the channel membership or Patreon, so thank you for that. Thanks to all of my patrons and channel members. And remember, my friends,
together we are the 6 color of magic.